want to ask you a couple of questions too about your podcast, if you don't mind. With the Pre-Accident Investigation podcast, you have expanded the conversation about HOP, but you have allowed system thinkers on there, and you specifically said that you did not just want industry leaders to come on.
Right.
Because
they're boring. Because they always want to sell their crap. They want to sell their book or sell it. And you'll get this too, is people always want to sell something. I want to sell my program. I want to sell my book. I want to sell my stuff. That's boring.
I'll tell you, I've had a couple of people on, and they referenced that they would come on only if I referenced X, Y, and Z. And I was kind of amazed. I was amazed by that to some extent.
Yeah, that's not surprising, right? And that's good for them, right? I mean, I don't mean to judge them. They want to sell their stuff, but it's just like after a while, have you ever gone to a conference and you go into the presentations, the breakout presentations, and everybody is wanting to sell you something? Here's a problem. Try my program. I'll help you. After a while, it just gets kind of fatiguing. So I'm really way more interested in people who actually do the work, because the people who do the work, those people are really interesting to me. And then, like, I'm super interested in like Jim Barker at Dalhousie. I'm interested in a person whose entire career is studying organizational complexity. Or, Edgar Schein. I love him. So I try to get people who are either right at the coalface, who are working hard and making things happen, because they know tons of stuff. Or I try to get people who are thinking about the next big problem.
So with you bringing that up, what do you see being the next big problem within our industry?
So I think the next big problem is probably going to be it's around getting leaders to re-identify what the safety outcome definition is that they're using. I mean, the outcome definition they use now is just wrong. And so we're going to have to change what we measure. Because right now we measure a bunch of crap that's just not very important. Like it just doesn't matter very much. So if a guy is working and a piece of dust flies in his eye and he needs some treatment, he needs a doctor, I want him to go to the doctor because I want him to not lose his eyesight. That's going to ding me because that is a medical, and I've got to report that to OSHA. But near as I can tell, it's an arbitrary thing that flew into his eye. It means if we don't fix it, he could lose his eyesight. It doesn't mean my safety program sucks. In fact, it has nothing to do with my safety program and everything to do with the fact that sometimes stuff floats around in the air. So let's not measure that. Let's not try to prevent bad things from happening. Let's actually try to ensure that we continue to have good things happen. Because mostly what happens when we do our work is we don't have accidents. So mostly what you have are workers managing risk in real time in complex systems very effectively. Let's figure out how they do that well, and let's build systems that support the continuation of that. And that actually is how improvement happens everywhere. That's how you get better. That's how your podcast gets better. That's what makes a difference. Make sense?
It makes sense. Now, do you feel that will still fall under Safety 2.0 or the new view of safety, or do you think that this will be an evolution into Safety 3.0?
I don't know. That's the future. Who knows? I mean, I honestly don't know. But I'm less wrapped up in what crap's called and way more wrapped up in what managers are doing. If I can get a manager to think differently about safety, then he asks different questions or she asks different questions. And if they're asking different questions, then I get different outcomes. And if I get different outcomes, I'm good.
Well, most managers, at least the ones that I've dealt with within organizations, are more of, I want to understand what is going to be the return on an investment if I actually put any money into your safety program.
It's funny you say that. I don't have those conversations. I've never, ever had a manager say, what is my return on investment? In fact, I've never talked to a manager who didn't want to have the best safety in the world. But maybe maybe that's the companies that ask me to come and help them. Because maybe if they ask me to come and help them, they're already kind of advanced. I don't think the return on investment argument is a good argument. I don't think it holds any water. I think really what managers want is to not hurt people. And any way we can help them not hurt people, they're into. Traditionally, what we've said is people get hurt because they don't care enough. If they tried harder or cared more, they'd get hurt less. Well, we're going in and saying, no, people don't get hurt because they don't care. They actually almost always get hurt because they care too much. and they're doing work where they're doing lots of trade-offs. They're having to give up reliability for production or whatever, and that has sort of high risk. Make sense?
It makes sense now. Do you feel that when they actually will take a look at that, all of a sudden they see the value within safety? Because I've been involved in some locations where they turn around
and it's probably just me. I'm not saying you're wrong at all. You totally have your experience. I just have never had anybody have the discussion about safety being valuable. Everybody I talk to completely. I mean, I talk to managers who take me aside. I mean, big, high, senior, CEO guys with teary eyes in a private room and say, I have no confidence we won't kill somebody tomorrow. And if they ask me that question, then I have a lot of work to do, because the only two things a senior leader manages is confidence and capacity. They have to believe they are a safe organization, and they have to believe they can make the organization function.
And I believe that when you actually start talking to the people at the level that you're referencing, those are more of the high-end executives, which are now held liable personally for the safety of the company. So do you think that that's why they were having those conversations?
I think they were anyway. I mean, I think all those things, none of those things are new. Like, I think the argument on return on investment, somebody who desperately wanted to make their program have value started to measure. The problem with that is there's no null set. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's super hard to measure something that doesn't happen. So I can never tell you how many people didn't die because of my program. I can't count that because it didn't happen.
Right.
And so we tend to sort of build these artificial arguments that we add value to the system. Well, here's what I'll tell you. A reliable system is a very productive system. A reliable system is a financially advantageous system, and a reliable system by definition is a safe system. And so we know when we're reliable, and that's really what we're going for, is we're not going for safety, we're going for reliability. When our system is reliable, when what we think is going to happen happens, then that's safe, efficient, and effective, and nobody gets hurt. Make sense?
Makes sense. And I mean, I look at it too, to the aspect is that we're glamorized salespeople. That's exactly what we are, because we're selling something that you can't touch and you can't feel.
Right. And I don't think of ourselves as salespeople. I think what we really are people that help sort of shift the philosophical underpinnings of what the definition of safety is. So really, you're more like an evangelist than you are like a salesperson. Because what you're trying to get them to do is to believe something different. So right now, they believe safety is the absence of accidents. And that's not true. I mean, that's an outcome. But if you do high-risk work and nothing bad happens, were you safe or were you lucky? Well, no one knows. I mean, they'll look at you kind of strange when you ask that question. What you want to talk about is safety is really the capacity to fail effectively. Or as David Woods calls it, margin of maneuverability. So,
thank you, Dr. Conklin. And I truly appreciate the time today for allowing us to do this interview here on Safety FM. And please remember to subscribe to the Pre-Accident Investigation Podcast, hosted by Dr. Conklin.
You call me Todd.
Todd, sorry,
damn it.
Todd, sorry.
Okay, thanks, brother.
Okay,
See you later.
Have a good one. Bye.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
Safety FM, changing safety cultures one broadcast and one podcast at a time.
safetyfm.com